Hold on a second. Hold the fort. If you're listening to this right now, we're doing 2 episodes this week. One episode where we talk about the news and Redfall and the like, and then our spoiler cast for Jedi Survivors. Excuse me, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. That first part's important. So if you're listening to this right now, understand that we're going to be talking about major spoilers for the entire plot of Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And if you don't want to hear that, then I'm not kidding. Stop listening, because we're gonna be talking about spoilers for that. If you're uninterested in that and just want to enjoy the news section of our show, listen to the other episode that's listed as 143 here. This might be listed as like 143A or something like that. I'm not really sure how I'm gonna do it once the episode's all done. You know what I'm trying to say. That all said, welcome to the Star Wars Jedi Survivor spoiler cast Hitbox edition. I don't know. Do we do an intro for this? You think?
Like
with the intro music and everything?
No.
They get it.
We'll just like talk about spoilers.
It's Hitbox. Justin, let's just get right into it.
My grandpa used to tell me about when he was in the army. You would know if the eggs were bad. They would like cook them in front of them in the mess hall. Yeah. They would crack the egg and put it on there. And if the center, the yolk just sank and was runny, not a good egg. And they'd scrape it off, crack another egg. And if it was the thing didn't like sink, then you were good and you'd eat it. And sometimes you just didn't get eggs because they were all bad. So spoiled eggs and spoiler cast.
I see what you're saying here.
You know what I mean?
Truly one and the same. Let's get right into it. Let's get right into it, Justin. I beat Star Wars Jedi Survivor earlier this week. I guess rather last week. I have the platinum for Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Holy shit! Well, I guess it makes sense. You were doing guide work on it.
Yeah, I had it early, so I had a head start. Okay. But yeah, I've got the platinum for it. I have finished it, and the platinum, by the way, requires you to. You don't have to 100% it, but like you get damn near close. You've got to like pretty much get 100% of all the stuff on Kobo and everything. You finished the game as well. I want your just general review of Star Wars Jedi Survivor now that you finished the whole thing, and I assume are playing it as well to do the open world stuff and whatever.
I'm going to preface this by I didn't play it on the PC. I played it after it was launched with its day one patch. So I didn't have significant technical issues at any point to the game that made me dislike the game from a technical standpoint. I had a moment of slowdown one time in Kobo. I had a couple of texture late pop-ins, stuff like that.
Yeah.
To be honest, the game ran so much better than Jedi Fallen Order when I played it 2 weeks ago and that was after it being released for a long time. I had so many more prevalent bugs in that game. So I'm not reviewing this from a standpoint of the game is sloppy or not because I didn't have that experience, though I know that could significantly have impacted people who played this game, specifically reviewers who played this game before launch and before the day one patch. So that's my preface for this. But man, I love this game. This is a Justin Makovich-ass game through and through. I love the gameplay. I love the upgrade systems. I love the combat. I love the exploration. It's a jump, dash game, and Mr. Makovich loves those games. Really, I can't think of a jump, dash game I don't like. I mean, all you got to do is pull me some Nier, and I'm like, yeah, that's a jump, dash game.
That is a jump, dash game. Yes, it is.
Jump dash, and I love that one. But yeah, I love this. I thought there's so much good stuff about it, and the more I'm exploring this platinum, the more and more I'm finding to like about it in terms of the story, in terms of the world, in terms of the exploration. And thank the fucking God they have fast travel in this, because let me tell you what I would not be doing. I said in last week's episode, I fast traveled twice, I think, of where I was. When you're platinum in this game, you're going to fast travel everywhere a million times to do everything. And it's not designed to be platinum without fast traveling. So I think this is really meant to make the completion journey much more enjoyable. And so far, I'm enjoying it a lot in my journey to platinum, which I will get. It won't be soon, but I will get it.
Yeah. I fall in a pretty similar vein as you. I really liked this game. I had a worse technical experience. So I've had 4 crashes. One was, as I said in previous episodes, about like right when I got control of Cal, like right at the beginning of the game, crashed. I was like, great start, Jedi Survivor. And then I had 3 crashes this past week as I was cleaning things up for the platinum. So I had some technical issues with it. Whatever. It's the sort of thing where, like, you know, I think it feels kind of sluggish. It feels like the tempo of the game is kind of uneven, which is not what you want, at least in my opinion, with a game like this, where I'm playing it on the harder difficulty, where the timing needs to be a little bit more precise. So when things kind of jitter around a little bit, and it makes it feel a little bit more all over the place. That said, I do really, really like the combat. I do really, really like the exploration. I like all of that stuff. The one thing that is really doing me dirty, other than the technical issues that I had initially with it, is I just didn't like the story. It's not even that I didn't like the story. I just don't think the story was anything. I didn't find a single character moment to relate with. I didn't find really any of the beats or the twists to be particularly effective or interesting. I thought that the best sequence was the whole stuff, the Imperial raid on Kobo. And when Darth Vader shows up, I mean, like, I'm a sucker for that. You know what I mean? When he shows up and it's like, all right, boss fight. And it's one of those things where that was a tough boss fight. And because I had to replay it so many times, because I died a lot, it gets you thinking, like, how is this going to end? Because I know that Darth Vader doesn't die. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And so I thought that was a good moment. And I did like the ending, and I like what the ending sort of sets up for a future game. But in terms of like the beat for beat plot of this game, I didn't really get a whole lot out of it. I know that you feel differently though. Is that right?
Yeah, I really liked it a lot. I think while it's not as, if I'm trying to first of all compare it to Jedi Fallen Order, I think Jedi Fallen Order is a story that's been told already in different ways.
Oh, you think so?
In terms of, you have someone who survived the Order 66, and they have to come back from that, and they are finding their place again. They've shut themselves off from the Force, and they're finding themselves again with it. I feel like this one is probably a story that you can make an argument has happened before, about someone's descent into darkness and him finding darkness, but you've never spent this much time watching someone go through this journey before. And I've never felt like I've seen a character have so many real moments of having his friends pull him out constantly of this spiral to the dark side. I always talk about how much I love the Clone Wars. I really think they did a bad job of depicting in the Clone Wars TV series.
Yeah.
Not the movie, that's terrible. But the Clone Wars TV series of Anakin's descent. I think there's so much back and forth with where his character goes throughout the whole series that, yeah, you could probably pick a 30-episode arc to really show him go through that. But with all in all, there's just so much that's happening. I never really felt like there was a clear build to that. But this one, from where we ended in the last game to it being a very happy ending, and it comes back, and guess what? It didn't turn out to be a happy ending for Cal. In fact, everything that he tried to do for good led him further and further apart from his friends and everyone around him. And he was with this group of people that he was connecting with. He was a Jedi terrorist who was going around and being used as a weapon for everyone around him, that you point Cal at something and he's going to destroy it. And I mean, literally in the story, that's what Bode does. He literally goes and near the end of it uses Cal as that weapon. Again, this poor kid who has nothing but good in his heart and wanting to do good things for other people gets pointed at the Empire to say, you're going to destroy this thing. And it happens again to someone who is one of his best friends. I honestly think Bode is one of his best friends. At least Bode creates, I think Bode really does fall for Cal in that way of him being a good friend and someone he trusts and someone he admires. So that makes that whole thing more difficult. And then in this game, you're not choosing. I don't want to say you're choosing. You use the dark side as a Jedi in a way that is like, when it happens, what happened in that moment when you were on the Imperial base and you are chasing after Bode and Kata, and then all those enemies come in that room? What did you do?
You kill them all.
Did you immediately go and press the use the darkness or succumb to the darkness or whatever they said?
Yeah, I think the game stops, doesn't it? Oh, no, you can?
It did. No, you have to. But I waited. Like, I don't want to be like that dramatic person, but I was like, no, Cal, you're not going to do this. I'm going to wait. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to see if this is going to be like a Far Cry 4 and 5 situation where if you wait long enough, there's a separate ending. I'm not going to do this. I waited for a good 5 minutes and I'm like, I can't. I gotta keep going, because I didn't want that to happen to him. I mean, the whole time he's been he's been fighting against this, and you could tell like every time something bad happened, he would lose his way more and more and more. And then this part happens after he, arguably one of the worst things that have happened to him, that someone that he trusts and brought into all these people hurt all these people and killed his new master again. But this was his fault. This wasn't some kind of implant in their brains. He was the one who did it. And then he's trying to chase after this person who has this kid who won't understand. And then he gets to this point and he's got to stop this guy, but he's almost going to die. And then he uses the dark side to kind of fight through it. And then you have the moment with him and Marin on the base, and he's literally going to kill this officer, and Marin's looking at him and is like forcing him down, like talking him off that ledge. And then I was like, okay, I'm not going to use the dark side again. But then again, you need to use the dark side again when you're fighting Bode at the end of the game in order to overcome it, even though you've been fighting and you think you're done with it, but you're not. So for me, like actually being in this moment where I think the next game story is going to be the really interesting one. What are they going to do with that? Are they going to make him go to the dark side? Are we going to be playing this hero that is slowly doing that? And again, you could say we've done that with Anakin before, but I think it's so different when this Cal character from the beginning has been the character that we are playing and we are controlling. And we don't know where his story is going to go. Unlike Anakin, the second you knew that you met Anakin, you knew where he was going. So I love this. Yeah. I've loved how they built all that stuff. Plus, the thing that I think this story does better than anything is it does not tell a traditional 3-act story. It really breaks the conventions of what a traditional story is, because you get to your third act, you confront the bad Sith Jedi who's gone bad, you kill him, and the game's not over. And I think we were talking either off camera last week about how, like, when we got to, I don't know if that was the part yet. No, I don't think I got to that part yet. But it felt like after I beat, what's his name, the Jedi, I keep forgetting.
Dagan
Gera. When you beat Dagan Gera, like, I was like, the game's over, right? And then it's like, it can't be, right? And then, like, we didn't get to the end, right? Who's the bad guy, right? Wait, what's going on, right? And it turns out the bad guy is nothing but a scared father who has been hiding his whole life and has used the dark side to protect his kids. And then it ends in this very personal way, not a galaxy ending battle in the stars. It was literally you against someone who had different ideals about stuff, and it was two people who were struggling with the dark side of the Force, and you were the one who went out on top, and you were the one who was able to, with friends, go through that and not necessarily fully commit to the dark side in that way. I thought it was so interesting and so well done, and I love how it starts off as getting the band back together to this big galaxy ending story, to then going back to just this small personal story of fighting through the dark side versus someone who you see in yourself. I don't know. It just so many good moments in the game, so many good character moments. I think Cal is really a great character, and I think this game makes him a better character than he was before. So I don't know. What do you disagree with? What are your thoughts? What do you sit when I say that?
Justin, I love you, and I'm glad that you got all of that out of this game. I got nothing of that. I disagree with a lot of the interpretations there, and that's okay. Like that's what they are. Like, their personal interpretations, whatever. And personal, like, how you felt about a moment, like, that's good. I'm glad that you have found it to be affecting. You know what I mean? But like, I found it to be so, like, I was let down by where the story went. Specifically when it comes to, like, stuff with the dark side, because I think Cal kind of turning bad is a cool story idea, and him tapping into the dark side, I think, is a cool story idea, especially after, like, when you meet him and he's so, like, down bad and beaten, you know what I mean? And it like, they talk about this sort of, like, ambiguous, like, falling out that, like, the gang from the last game had and all that sort of stuff. Like, I do like that idea that, like, okay, you're a Jedi, but you don't really have any guidance anymore, and, like, you know, everything seems so like pointless and fruitless and you're fighting against the Empire. So like, yeah, you might go bad. But like, I think the moment when he does tap into the dark side that you were talking about that you waited for, I just didn't feel like it was impactful because what is the dark side power in the game? It's you click the sticks and you slow down time just like you had been doing before. And yeah, it does extra damage now, but like, that's not that doesn't really change what you're doing. It's still the same slowdown power that you were using, and that was light side force, right? And then what do you do in that sequence? You kill a bunch of stormtroopers, which isn't like you've been doing that the whole time. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't an effective moment for me because I was like, well, you're just doing exactly what you did before. It's just now it's red. You know what I mean? As opposed to being blue. And now when you go to level up, the light is red now instead of blue, or maybe it's not level up. Maybe it's in the menus. And then the same thing happens, right? Like I do like the scene where Marin's trying to talk him down from killing Devnik, the Imperial officer who like set the whole thing up. I like that scene because that's a character moment, and they talk about it, right? But he never really grapples with the dark side again. He basically just tells her like, yeah, I just won't do that again. And then what does he do? He does do it again in the fight with Bode, but he doesn't grapple with it. He just uses it to, I think, break free once, like in a little cutscene, and then, but once he's done it, like he doesn't actually use the dark side to do anything bad. Like it would be one thing, I think, if he used the dark side to like torture Bode or do something like truly hateful towards Bode, but he doesn't. He just kills him, and like Jedi kill people. Like that's not necessarily a dark side thing. Obi-Wan cut fucking Darth Maul in half. like that was a light side. Like he wasn't like.
I mean, did you see that devil face though? Like, I mean, that's evil. You know what I mean?
But like he didn't do like, you know what I'm saying? Like Jedi kill people. They carry swords. Like they do kill people. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. So I don't think that the game did really grappled with that at all. And Cal basically just said like, no, I'm good. Like it's okay. I'm fine. And I don't think that did a good job at like, I don't think the narrative did a good job of saying like, no, Cal did something bad, because in the two instances of him doing the bad thing, it's stuff that he's done before. It's killing a bunch of stormtroopers, which he has no problem with doing and shouldn't have any problem doing because they're the bad guys, right? And then it's killing a Sith, which he did, and that is not a bad thing. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't call him a Sith.
That's also my problem. I think him being Bode being a Sith. I mean, like he's got the red lightsaber. He uses the Force to fucking hurt children. Like,
well, that wasn't his lightsaber.
Was that not his lightsaber? Oh, wait, that was Dagon's, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was Dagon's. That's what he got. Like, did you go back to get Bode's Force Echoes?
I've gotten some of them, yeah.
Because one of them, he literally talks about grabbing the lightsaber. If you go back to where you killed Dagon, he goes back to get it because he might be useful. And he basically says, I have to give Cal one more chance to make the right choice. And I think what those Force Echoes really do is it starts to humanize him in this way that makes you understand that, yeah, he's done the same thing Cal did. He's tapped into the power of the dark side, but that doesn't mean he's a Sith or necessarily a bad guy. And I love how his motivations were just trying to protect his daughter. But then once you start playing with that power too much, that's when he loses control. And I think for me, like going off of what you were going to say something. Sorry, I don't want to.
I just also don't think that, like, I don't find his motivations to be particularly, like, I thought that the motivations of all these characters was really weird. So, like, I thought that the plan was to move everyone to Tanalorr. Because they talked about like bringing a bunch of people in and whatever, and Marin talked about like, yeah, we're gonna bring all sorts of people in, and even what's his name, Grease comments on it. He's like, that's gonna be kind of hard to keep everyone like tight-lipped about a secret place from the Empire. So like, I assumed that the plan was to bring the Hidden Path with the Empire, with them to Tanalorr, and then it's only after they killed Dagon Gera that Cal is like, oh, maybe we should bring the Hidden Path with us to Tanalorr, and I was like, oh, I thought that was the plan. That anyone who was persecuted by the Empire and that needed safety could come to Tanalorr. And that's when Bode gets all weird about it. And it's weird because like I thought that they had like it didn't seem like they were just saying like, oh, only the three of us are going to go to Tanalorr.
So it started off with Cal talking about how he wanted to hide from the Empire. That's what his motivations were, and that's what Bode heard, and that's what Bode was going with. Like, oh, Cal wants to bring all these people out to hide from the Empire. But the second other people started hearing about it, the second Seer started hearing about it, and other people started hearing about it, they start to balloon this idea that it's not just going to be to hide. It's going to be to have a base of operations, to be able to gather our strength and eventually fight back. And at first, that's not what Cal wanted, but eventually, near the end, that's what he started to see. Because when he was fighting Dagon, he's like, Dagon had it right. Remember, he had that moment when he was talking to him? Like, that's when Cal flipped with what he wanted to do. That he wanted to go there to start a Jedi temple again, create Jedi, build back the power of what they once had in order to go back and fight the Empire. And that's when Bode's like, that's not what you said. That's not what you wanted. You were going to hide. We were going to hide from everyone. We weren't going to go and get attacked by people. We were going to stay here, create another society free of the Empire that we didn't have to worry about. So it's like one of those things that, as Cal's initial thing was about how he wanted to hide after he lost all of his friends and thought he was alone in the world, eventually he realized that he needed to fight for it, and Bode didn't want to change with him.
But like Marin brought up that they were going to bring other people too, that any one person, like they brought up that they were going to bring a bunch of different people there. And like, to me, like I've played this game twice, right? And I watched myself play it a third time. So I've played this game 3 times. So to me, if I have to have it explained to me 4 times, I don't think it was told well. I don't think that the character, like, I guess if I had to keep track of who was in the room when these conversations were happening, and like it just didn't feel like the motivations were there for me. I didn't think that. I didn't love the way this story was told, and I think that Bode, like, I don't think he was portrayed sympathetic enough to be this villain that Cal hates so much that he's going to use the dark side on. You go to the dark, like, use dark side of the Force to kill and fight. Like, I get, like, he's mad at him for killing Seer, or like leading to Seer's death, right? Like, I do understand that he's upset about that, but like, I didn't find like there to be enough conflict for me to even like really think Bode was right at all. Do you know what I mean? Because then also, like, when they get to Tanalorr, he's like using the Force to like push Kata away, and it's just like it's gross to me. Like, it makes me feel like, oh, like he's gonna use the Force on his kid to like throw her. Like, that's not great. You know what I mean?
But to me, that proves that he was a monster, and that he did let his own fear and ambition control him. And I think part of it is, this isn't the story about Cal turning to the dark side. That'll be the next game. That'll be the thing that you grapple with more. This was the one about. One of the tenets of Jedi is that they have this power, but it's their job to not succumb to it and not allow the power to control them. The dark side of the Force is the power. That is where you go to get unrelented power. And in instances where Cal ends up using the dark side, he's using it because he has no choice. He needs that power. He needs to tap into that power in order to survive. And going back to Seer, I find it interesting that when Seer is kind of like this, obviously when you're playing as her in that moment, way more powerful than Cal is. Like, you're slicing through these
like
enemies like nothing, and just feeling like this like power trip. But she was someone who also struggled tapping into the dark side, but used it, and obviously got stronger because of it. And then when you use the Force powers, your moves are exactly like what Seer's were when you use the dark side. And you start swinging your lightsaber. You have the same exact moveset that Seer does at that moment. And there's all this, I am like not an expert with a lot of the specifics of Star Wars. I've just seen a lot of Star Wars and read a lot of it. I'm not like a super fan here. But you have Mace Windu. And one of the reasons why Mace Windu was a strong Jedi is because his specific type of fighting stance, or his lightsaber stance, actually embraces the dark side to gain the power from the dark side out going through the dark side. So he kind of like fights in between the light and the dark side, and that's why he was such a powerful Jedi. So for me, the dark side is not so much about Cal's going to be a bad guy in this game or he's becoming a bad guy. It's the fact that he is allowing himself to slip into the dark side to get that strength to do anything, to survive, to fight, to protect or whatever. And the more that becomes the elusive lure of the Force, the more you start to rely on that and want that and remember what that feels like and what that power is like. And I really think like it is a way that I have never seen in a video game of someone slowly starting to taste the dark side and taste what it can bring you. At first it saves you, then it does something that you're going to gain an advantage by using it. And eventually you start to rely on it because that's what you do and that's what you are. So again, I don't think this is the game of Cal becoming a Sith or anything like that. It's the first cracks in his armor, and then the next game is going to be dealing with that more.
I hope so. My thing is like I hope so because I just don't think that he grappled with it. I mean, he had that, like I said, he had that conversation with Marin, and I thought that was good. But like it just felt like there was that one scene, and then he said like, oh, I'll just never do that again. And then he does it again, but then they don't talk about it, like he doesn't grapple with it. And I feel like it's worse for it. It's just because to me, something that I think does a really good job, and obviously it's not about the Force or anything like that, but The Last of Us Part 2, I think is a wonderful example of like, you have this character who you love and you admire and you like, and they start doing bad stuff, and
Joel.
the bad stuff feels good in that moment because that revenge is sweet, right? She wants that revenge. And like, yeah, it's going to feel great when I do the bad stuff because I'm going to feel better and I'm going to be able to like, it's not a 1-to-1, but like it will feel good to do this. And then when she does the bad stuff, turns out it doesn't feel that good, or there's ramifications to it, right? To how far can you go until you are a different person, right? I think that's an interesting point of something like The Last of Us. And with this, I think it's offering a similar conversation and asking similar questions, right? Like, how bad can you go? How deep into the dark side can you go before you're bad? And because he talks about he talks about that Seer told him that every Jedi grapples with the dark side. And we've seen that again and again in all sorts of Star Wars stuff, right? But it's about those choices that they make to not engage with that. And they grapple with those feelings and those choices and everything like that. And you can grapple with it in the way that Luke Skywalker does in Return of the Jedi, where he says, no, I'm not going to kill Darth Vader. I'm not going to kill anyone. I'm throwing my weapon aside. I'm not going to do this anymore. Or you have the opposite of it with Anakin, right? Where it's like, oh, I need this power to do what I want to do. But it felt like Cal just like he needed the power to do what he wanted to do. And then they didn't really just talk about it. And I'm excited. I'm excited if that's where they want to go with it for the third one, but it doesn't make me feel any better about this one. And also, I don't even know if that's where they're going to go with that in the third one. To me, it seems like they're setting up that the first one is about him being a Jedi, him being an apprentice and learning how to become a Jedi Knight with a new teacher, with Seer, to finish his training, right? In this one, it's about him being a Jedi Knight and learning what it means to be a Jedi. And then I think in the third one, if I had to guess, he's going to have a Padawan in Kata, and that it's going to be about him being a teacher. Those the three stages of being a Jedi, right? Of being a Jedi, a Padawan, a Jedi Knight, and a Jedi Master. But that's just where I think it's going, and I'm interested in that. I like talking to Kata when I go all the different places, being like, "What do you think about this?"
Yeah, what a weird relationship too, BT Dubs.
Yo, it's just awkward. Like I did kill. You watched me shoot him to death.
Though they did allow her on several occasions to have that conversation with you, and then eventually you and Marin, in which she is clearly smart enough to know that her dad's not in a good space. Yeah. And like, I think when her dad lashes out, that kind of gives that idea that he is dangerous. I mean, it's still like this emotional turmoil, but a lot of different things. I mean, there's so many ways they could go with this. Yeah, I think they could do the traditional, you're going to be the person who's going to watch over this girl and train her to be a Jedi. They could go into the thing that maybe she becomes the bad guy, and then Cal's responsible for that, and you got to kill her. Or maybe she ends up killing Cal. There's a lot. There even a couple scenarios, light, dark with each of them. There's a ton of different ways you can go with that story. But you also said about like the story about the Jedi, like Luke. I mean, there's a certain movie where he does lead into the dark side a little bit.
I don't want to talk about it.
I'm just going to tell you that right now. There is a moment when he lets it come, but
he grapples with it. But he grapples with it.
He does. But like, what is his reason for grappling with it? The greater good. And isn't a lot of like when you're thinking about like, would you do something terrible for the greater good?
Well, but
and if
but
you
like,
do, is that the right choice?
I think that's an interesting question, but I don't think that this game offers an answer to it. I think it just says like, isn't it fucked up? And then it's like, I don't know.
I still don't think that that's where this game is trying to like resolve it in this game. I don't think at this, like, that's how they are coming to the end of this. Like, I think it's just beginning. I really think it's not just resolved like that. Like, he's not just done with the dark side.
But did you feel like he, like, did you feel like there were, other than that one scene with Marin, do you think that there was any times when he had any sort of reflection on that moment?
Not on that moment, because he had that reflection before he even went into the dark side. Because he told about, once he saw Dagon, he was like, he had that conversation, I think it was with Marin again, how he was afraid that he would become like him. He was afraid of going over to the dark side, and he was afraid of doing that. And like, he has been grappling with this. I don't think there's a way to look at, like, to think about, like, for what he did and what he's been doing. I think he kept isolating himself from the people around him. He kept doing terrible things and kept being used by people. I think it's one of those things that it's not the first time he's been thinking about this kind of stuff. He's worried about this. He's worried about tapping into, like, what his potential is, and probably a little scared of himself and what he can do. Because he knows what can happen to people when they're in those extreme circumstances. So I don't know. I don't think you're wrong, because I think part of me with this story, I mean, you compare it to The Last of Us Part 2. There is no way in God's green earth I'm going to compare this story to The Last of Us Part 2. You know what I mean? Like, this is still like a campy Star Wars thing. I think it's one of the better Star Wars stories, in my opinion, because I don't think that's a very high bar.
Well, I guess here's where I am a little disappointed, because if this game was the first in the series, I'd be like, it was great. But I think that the first game, in my memory, it's been 2 years since I played it, but 3 at this point. In my memory, that first game does do a lot of character stuff, talking about the Force and what it means to be a Jedi, and Cal grappling with that, and Seer helping him grapple with that, and like, it is a more, in my opinion, emotional human story about how do you deal with your identity, and how do you deal with being good or being bad. And we talk about, right, that scene at the end of the game where he gets knighted with the red Sith lightsaber, and what a moment that is, because it's like, you're right. Like, it is the culmination of all of the conversations and all the feelings and narrative beats to that point about, like, it doesn't actually matter. It's about who you are and what you believe and all that sort of stuff. But to me, this game is a letdown, because I don't think that it takes the time to deal with its characters in that sort of way. And I feel like a lot of the game, and we talked about this, I think, last week, I feel like a lot of the game's story is devoted to following this, like, the whole, like, Dagon Gera versus Centauri Kree plot. Like, I don't care. Like, the characters, the main characters, other than like a very superficial link because it's with Dagon Gera, because Cal is like, oh, I'm also looking for Tanalorr. I don't think they have any relationship. Like, I don't think that there's any, like, connection between them. They don't have any, like, scenes where it's like, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like so much of the game is devoted to this story that I just don't think the main cast has really any emotional investment in, for it to then, when it's all over, like, so much of the story was just nothing. And then they crammed the stuff in the end when Bode turns on everyone else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, because I think for me, the story didn't really start to, like, come to life until you kill Dagon Gera, right? Mm-hmm. Like, to me, that's, like, kind of where, for me, it shifts from being a fine like Star Wars story to something that I think is like really special.
Yeah.
Because I mean, all those story beats that happen after that I think are so great. But yeah, I think the first half of it is really about getting the band back together, and I guess the first 3/4 of it is about getting the band back together because you finally get Seer back and then shit hits the fan. But yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think you're wrong. I think I would go back and play the first game again because I think that story is like a little faster and a little sloppier than I remembered it when I replayed it.
Sure.
In the fact that it's a basic story. You have this guy on a junk planet who uses the Force to save his friend and gets attacked by people, suddenly gets saved by another Jedi who is no longer a Jedi, and then she kind of guides you without talking about the Force, and then you slowly but surely whatever. But all right, I want to talk about a couple moments in this game that we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah. Also, real quick, I don't think you're wrong for liking this. And I don't think like anyone's wrong for liking this and get their interpretations on this and whatever else. I hope that's clear as well. Anyway, you're saying.
I loved everything that happened on Jeddah once the invasion happened.
Yeah, I thought that was good stuff.
So I think there's so many good moments in there, like some of the best like character moments. Like you said, the red star lightsaber thing. I mean, I have a red lightsaber thing every 3 seconds in that moment. Like from the beginning and like me like a fucking hawk watching Bode, right? And like when that alarm first goes off, I watch him as he cuts in front of me, and I'm like, oh, that bitch is going for the compass. I fucking knew it.
So Justin and I had this conversation after we recorded last week's episode where like we talked for 30 minutes just about like where we think the story's going, and you were like I think Bode's like a traitor, and like I think he's gonna betray for whatever, and you basically had it like 95% of what was gonna happen. You're like, because like it just doesn't make sense that like all this sort of stuff, and so you nailed it. Is like you totally nailed it. Well done.
And then he escapes, and like you even have that moment when Cal kind of freaks out a little bit after Seer basically saves his butt from the grenade, and he's kind of like freaking out, and then Seer's like, "You got to get him. You do this." And then he has that like moment when he gets like kind of like whatever and just starts running after. You get on the speeders that you talked about, and like earlier, did you ever walk by the speeder before you got on it?
Nope.
So you walk by the speeder, and Cal's literally like, this is like early in the game. He's like, oh, speeder. I've never ridden one of those before.
Oh, really? That's kind of fun.
Yeah. And then you run and you start running that direction. And I was like, are we going to the speeders? And then you get to the speeder, and then you have that whole chase. And then you have that moment when you fight Bode for the first time. And like, oh my God, that scene. I love that first moment when Bode is like talking about like, you are going to leave me. You have to go back. I know you feel it. And I was like, wait, you feel it? How do you feel it?
Wait, it's just your instincts, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, then he pulls out the lightsaber, and I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. Like, I was expecting him to like be a traitor. I wasn't expecting to be a fucking Jedi. And then like, then that fight happens, and I don't know about you at that moment. I didn't do super hot in that fight. I got like my ass handed to me. I was like, all right, I got to reload. And then like you respawn and you're fucking Seer.
Well, it's fun too. Like, I don't know if you had this moment where, like, when you're in that fight and you realize, like, oh, BD1 did not come with, so I do not have.
I didn't realize
you don't have stims.
Okay,
so you can't heal. So you have that moment where it's like, oh no,
yeah, this is gonna be a shitty fight, and only cut to another 30 minutes, and you get the real shitty fight.
Yeah.
And then you are Seer, and you are just like making
Line
fools look. You're just destroying it. And I don't know if you had this moment when you get to that first meditation point. I had like an Abby from Last of Us Part 2 moment.
Like, are we about to get a whole new skill tree?
I was like, please don't. And then it wasn't. There was, you could save. And then you like do all that stuff. You stop the AT-ATs that are coming at you. You explode those things. You do that last stand. Then you have that moment when they're leaving. And then you're going with BD to get the thing. And then you looked at BD and you're like, go. And I was like, what's
happening.
What's coming? What is the force that's coming that's threatening your friends? And she, like a fucking badass, lets him go and just turns and goes for it. And that fight, let me tell you something. I played it on, again, the medium difficulty, like the average one for everything. That fight was a fucking bitch.
Yeah.
And I never missed my blaster stance more than in that fight. Like, you said it took you like, what, two, 3 hits?
Yeah, so on the Jedi Master it's 3 hits total and you're done.
Man,
And they come fast, so like
they
it can be just
do,
like
and
you're
it's
done.
like you're learning his moves, and then like every time there was another phase, I was like, oh fuck, I gotta do this again. I was like, maybe there's
Yeah.
a save point. The first time he like lets up like fire, no, wasn't a save point. Then you finally beat him, and then you have that moment when Seer's just like, I'm gonna take it to you, and she does the Palpatine like like, at him and like does the lunge, and then they both get stabbed. I knew fucking immediately she got stabbed. I'm like, come on now. And then but this isn't even the part that I love yet. Oh, this is the part, man. This is the fucking part that
This
we're
was a
going
good
to
moment
right
here
now.
when she gets stabbed. What you're talking about here.
So she gets stabbed, and then she was like holding it, and then she kind of like falls over, and then you see Vader limp away, and then all of a sudden you see the pulsating around her, and then you see Cal having the Force echo of her, and like
Grab her.
remembering her
Yeah.
last moments, and then she says Cal, and her last words are Trilla.
Which I had to look up who that was, and then I was like, "Oh, that's such a good." It was a
God.
great moment.
And like first of all, like imagine being Cal and hearing that. Like from Cal's perspective, that must have killed him a little bit.
Yeah.
But like also for her last words is for her to call out to her Padawan that she still to this day wishes she could save. And like, oh my God, like that was such a moment. Like that was such a good moment of that game. Like that whole sequence, just the second you get back, it was just like moment for moment. Like I don't think I played a moment like that in gaming in quite a while. Like I can't remember the last time. Was there anything in God of War that made me feel like that? I don't think so. Not to that fast pace. I mean, maybe the part when you're talking to right before you start fighting Thor, that part's pretty badass when Kratos just runs towards him. That's a good part too. But that was one part.
Sure.
Like this was just that whole sequence that just
yeah.
kept escalating for me, and it just kept getting better and better. And then remember, I was playing this on. Do you remember what day I was playing this fight on?
Was it May 4th?
It was May fucking 4th, man.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
fighting Darth Vader on May 4th. You make a better day than that for me. That was like my dream right there. I couldn't have asked for anything more. But then the whole Imperial base thing, I thought that was great. The second you get on the Imperial outfit and you walk through that
was kind of fun.
And then you're going through Bode's room and you see all the stuff, and then you hear something and you see in the back and you're like, oh shit, who's that? And then it's a girl and you're like, oh my God, his daughter's in this room. And then like it's just there's so many like moments that happen near the end of that game that I think are just like A+ moments. And one of my favorite Star Wars, there's 2 moments in this game that I'm gonna laugh. The first one is that boss fight you have versus the door guy.
Oh, it's so good. Rick the door technician.
It was, I don't know if you were in the same spot, but by the time I got to that, I was done with all my stims. So I was like really fucking nervous.
Yeah.
And then I see this guy coming at me and I was like, oh, fuck, a boss fight. I used my blaster from like across the room. He's
Oh, did
gone.
you
I was
really?
like,
That's so
awesome.
funny.
It was so funny for me. But then when they're jumping to Tanalorr finally, you all of a sudden you see Cal put his hand up on the hyperspace drive, and then like they're all like, no, don't do this.
Go.
And he's like, do you trust me?
Now hold on a second.
And then well, that's not the part that got me.
Okay,
and then
okay.
all of a sudden you hear Seer say now, and he does it, and then Grease starts screaming. They make it. Marin and Cal just start making out. Grease is still screaming during that moment. Like just such a moment of funny levity after this, like as this like build is happening. I just that part was like the top part. But what part you like about the do you trust me?
It made me laugh because he's like, do you trust me? And it feels like it's a callback to when Marin is like, do you trust me? And then kisses him. You know what I mean? Like
A little bit, yeah.
It felt like it was like the wrong person was in the pilot seat. Do you know what I mean? That it should have been a callback of like, she's like, do you trust me? And he's like, yes. And then he would then to her say, do you trust me later? It made me like, I was like, oh.
Yeah, I still think I go back to the fact that she kissed him after he said that because of the way he said it.
Yeah.
And
Oh, sure.
It was
Where
just
he's
like,
of course.
Okay, okay. Anyway, but I mean, all those moments, I like. Oh my God, that was such as just a bam, bam, bam way to end it. But yeah. I mean, anything else that stood out to you?
I'm trying to think. I liked when this is at the very beginning. I liked the stuff with the ninth sister, her showing up and him killing her and him knowing her real name and all that sort of stuff. I thought that was cool. I liked. I
forgot that fight happened till right now.
It's a good fight.
That's how much stuff happened in this game.
I do like this stuff with Seer. I liked what he said to her that when I actually really liked the final cutscene when they burn the bodies, where everything speeds up and he's just standing there.
I laughed. Did you think it was a bug at first?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Jedi
checking. I was like, oh, I
Survivor.
guess I finally found my bug right now.
Yeah, I thought the game was breaking again. I was like, and I'm like recording it and like, oh gosh. It is that final cutscene I really liked, and I really liked what he said to her about like, thank you for like teaching me, for letting me walk my own path when I needed to, and then there was one more thing, and I think that is excellent. And then her lightsaber is there, and I assume that, and this is just my speculation, that that's the lightsaber that Kata is going to have when we don't know if she's a Jedi, but I mean, like, I think she's probably a Jedi. In my opinion, I think she's probably a Jedi. I think you put a kid on that
family.
ship.
I mean, clearly Bode was like pretty damn strong in the Force.
Yeah.
I had this moment. I think I Googled that after you beat Dagon. I was like, how strong is Cal in the Force? I was like, he's got to be pretty strong. Like, he's doing some pretty badass stuff. Like, he's noticing like this Force manipulation and like using it back at this guy. He has all his weird powers. He must be pretty strong. Probably one of the stronger Jedis left. And then you play Sierra, and I was like, oh no,
no,
not quite.
Yeah, I really liked that final cutscene. It made me laugh a little bit. I was like. I didn't laugh, but like if Bode's some fucking horrible traitor that you're tapping the dark side in to kill him, why are you burying him next to Seer and what's his name, the people that he fucking killed? I don't care. It's also like his daughter's there, like whatever. It didn't actually bother me, but I was just like, oh, I wouldn't have. Personally, I would have
like put him in a separate space.
I would have left him on the fucking floor.
Off,
two bullets in that fucking head.
And maybe Kata would have some trust issues at that point. She probably would have been like,
Kata, listen, you got to understand who your dad was.
Oh yeah, you're right. Shit. You're right, Cal. We should just eat him. Let's just eat him. I know I'm hungry. We're stuck on this damn planet.
So, I finished this game, got the platinum. I purchased Star Wars The Force Unleashed because I was like, this is a game that I remember being fucking fantastic from my childhood. This is a game that, because I didn't get the whole light side, dark side grappling emotional story that I wanted. And in my mind, Star Wars The Force Unleashed does that.
I doubt it was.
I have not finished it yet. I mean, I've played the first two levels. I played the intro, where he plays Darth Vader, and then I played the first two where you fight Ram Koda, and then the guy on the junk planet, and then I'm still going. So far, it has not impressed me. And I will also say this of Star Wars Jedi, Survivor, and Fallen Order. They have figured out how to make lightsaber combat feel really good and work really well, especially when fighting other people who have lightsabers. It is not very good in Star Wars The Force Unleashed. I think there are going to be beats of the story that I'm going to have a fondness for as I play it. Yes, they have definitely figured out how to make those lightsabers feel very good and how to make those sword fights feel very grand. They figured out the combat majorly.
I've only read the story about both of those games, but it's always something that I wanted to play. They had like a Star Wars bundle on sale for the Switch for like $40 for all the old Star Wars games. I almost got, but then I was like, literally, I'm going to spend $40 on games right now that I have no time to play.
Yeah, you're not going to play.
Because this other thing is coming up like in a couple days. That's going to be like forever, and
Yeah. No. Also, The Force Unleashed 2 is a piece of flaming garbage. Like, do not touch that game.
Interesting story.
You think so?
I mean, I think all of that, like the whole trip to the dark to the light side, is an interesting one. But
yes, I think that the first Force Unleashed is really good and was a good standalone story. And then when they were like, "We'll do a sequel," it's like, oh gosh, and like he's a clone and like all this stuff.
But more clones. It's Star Wars. Snoke. You got to set up that stuff. From the best Star Wars movie of all time.
You're gonna get people mad at us.
Oh. Okay.
Which one were you? The best Star Wars movie of all time is, let's say it together, Solo.
Wait. Oh no.
No, I'm kidding.
Oh. That's a rougher question than I think it should be.
The Empire Strikes Back.
I think nostalgia wise, one of my favorite movie experiences was The Force Awakens.
Yep, I would agree.
Because that was such like in retrospect, watching it again, it didn't hit that same time as hard the second time. But I'm gonna be this guy.
Uh-oh, he's looking both ways. Hot
A
take
New
alert.
Hope. I fucking love A New Hope. There's
No, it's
nothing
great.
wrong with that movie. I think that one's better. I think there are parts of Empire Strikes Back that are a little slow. All I'm gonna say is hand puppet Moonrock. And the rest of it, the rest of it, I think is great. But like, there's a couple. The middle parts can always, I can leave that one a little bit.
I rewatched both of those movies, by the way, recently. When I had my hand surgery, and they're both very good.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying The Empire Strikes Back is a bad movie, but I think on more days you ask me which one I like better, it's Episode 4.
I just think that like what those movies nail is like, here are three interesting and complicated, sympathetic characters that you want to know more about, and that you want to see them get in different situations. And I think that that's where other Star Wars stuff doesn't always hit the mark, because they want to go with like a plot that they're more interested in than the characters. And I think the most interesting thing about Star Wars are the characters.
Oh my God, yes. That's why the Clone Wars rocks. That's why Rebels, dude, still, I'm telling you, watch Rebels. Bad Batch Season 2, started watching that. It's pretty good. Oh, by the way, Star Wars Visions. Have you watched any of that?
No, the anime stuff?
I mean, they're so random and like all over the place, but I watched the first episode. You have like a Sith toting an umbrella that has like a spinny lightsabers like on it, who's basically in a samurai showdown in this town that they're overtaking. It was like insane crazy. I was like, this is nothing adding to the Star Wars canon in my head, but boy, is this fun to watch.
That's kind of fun. I like that.
Yeah, it was worth it.
So there you go. Thanks so much for sticking around and joining us for our spoiler cast. You can get the rest of this week's Hitbox in the feed as well under episode 143. Thanks again so much for joining us. If you're interested, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/hitboxpod. Find us on Twitter at hitboxpod as well. Sorry, our deluxe Patreon producers, Dave Parker and Jay Knoll. It's weird that I'm saying it. It'll be 3 times today as we do our thing. That's why I'm thrown off. Apologies there. But you can join their ranks there. Join our Discord server. Link to that is in the description of this episode. We will catch you next week. Always remember, Star Wars games are a mixed bag, to be honest with you. But old games,
there ain't that many good ones.
no. Old games are old. Bye.
Bye. Love is all you need.